Last time we began to talk about the dragon in Revelation 12. Now, as we read previously, verse 3 states, "Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads." Now, if those dragon heads were anything like my kids, that's a recipe for disaster. 7 heads, 7 crowns, that works out, but 10 horns? You know what that means, don't you? And 3 of the heads got 2 horns, 4 of them got only 1. Now, if I was that dragon's parents, I would cut off those extra horns and throw them away. 7 heads, 7 horns, 7 crowns, everybody gets the same. Anytime I hear someone talk about morality being relative, I want to point them to my kids. Like, we did never sit them down to explain the concept of fair and unfair. The concept is deep in their bones. Of course, by now you know there's way more going on with heads and horns and crowns than all of that. Daniel 7:7, the iron-toothed 4th beast of course had 10 horns, which should clue us in that the dragon that John sees is the beast Daniel saw. Now, I think I covered this when we discussed the beast back in Revelation 11, verse 7. Daniel was troubled by the vision he received and tells us one nearby leaned in to give him this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different than all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 4th beast is a kingdom. The 10 horns we're told in the following verse are 10 kings. Now, I don't know if it's essential to hold too tightly to the literal understanding of these numbers as if you could count each king. Remember, the numbers in Revelation are often symbolic. What's worth noting is that in light of Daniel 7, the dragon in Revelation represents an empire. Just as we saw last week, the dragons representing Pharaoh in Egypt, or Nebuchadnezzar and of Babylon. So the dragon is an empire. Case closed. No, not at all. That's not how Revelation works. The very next verse in chapter 12 states, its tail swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that it might devour her child the moment he was born. Now, I don't know any nation that can do that. That brings to mind Paul's words in Ephesians 6. "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So the dragon is an empire, and behind, underneath, and through that empire, our adversary, the devil, is working. Now, at this point, verse 5 returns the focus to the woman. "She gave birth to the son, a male child who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne." Now, I mentioned previously that perhaps the woman should be identified with Israel. But ruling the nations with an iron scepter is an obvious nod to Psalm 2, verse 9, which is talking about the Messiah. The son born to the woman is Jesus. Now think about the nativity stories. What does Herod try and do? He wants to kill Jesus. Was Herod evil? Absolutely so. He killed all the male children in Bethlehem and all of that region who were 2 years old and under. And yet, reading between the lines in John, there is a story behind the story. The enemy is behind it. And an unseen battle is raging. We'll pick up there next time. In the meantime, how's that for a Christmas story? God bless.